Hey guys, it's Charlene, and I'm here with a sneak peek of the upcoming Pet-tastic release from Honeybee Stamps. So I'm going to start by stamping out this little cutie. I have some Be Creative Intense Black ink. I'm going to make sure to get a nice inking on my stamp, flip my plate, and do some even pressure here to ensure a nice image transfer. Lift that up, and I'll do a second stamping to build up that black color. Go ahead and flip and press and lift. I'll start here by coloring my wagon with R.6, 0.5, and 0.4. I'm starting with the darkest, which is 0.6, and I'm going to go around the edges as well as the top of the wheel with the 4.6. As I get towards the middle, I'm going to start flicking my brush towards that center part. This is going to help with the blending. Next, I'll bring in a line of that same 4.6 going underneath the rim of the wagon, so that way that lip stands out at the top. Here I have my 0.5. I'm going to slightly overlap my 0.6, again doing that same flicking motion in towards the center, leaving a small area where I can bring in my highlight color, which is going to be my 0.4. I'll repeat that entire process all over again to build up the color. For that rim along the top of the wagon, I'm going to use the 0.5. Now for my wheels, I've got some CG9. I'm going to do a thin line going all the way around the outside of the wheel as well as towards the center where the tire ends. Then I can bring in my CG5, which is quite a bit lighter, and do some small circles going all the way around in that area. That helps create the highlight for the tire. I've added some CG3, flicking it in towards the center of the wheel, and now I'm going to use my CG1, flicking from the center of the wheel out, so that way it's lighter towards the center and darker towards the edges. I'm going to repeat that process for the one on the left, and I'm going to continue with my cool grays here to do all of the metal work on the wagon, so the handle, the metal beams underneath the wagon as well. And I'm doing that here with CG5 and CG0. So taking CG5 along the edges of that metal work and then using CG0 right along the center to create a nice highlight that makes it look nice and bright like metal. Next, I'll color my bucket using some blue greens. I've got BG 0.8, 0.7, and 0.4. Starting with the 0.8, I'm going to flick it in about a 1/16 of an inch from the left and the right hand side of the bucket. I'm also going to run a thin line underneath the rim of the bucket and along the top of the wagon where the bucket meets it. I'll bring in my 0.7 next, and I'm going to pull out that 0.8 about 1/4 of an inch towards the center of the bucket, doing that on both sides. Then I can bring my lightest color, which is the 0.4, again just going slightly over the 7 and pulling it out towards the center, leaving a little spot for a highlight. For my greens, I'm going to bring in some yellow greens. I've got some YG 1.4 and some YG 1.6. Next, I'm going to color the centers of my daisies, and here comes the big boo-boo. These were supposed to be white daisies, but my yellow decided to drip. So now we're going to have yellow and white daisies, but never fear, I will show you guys how to fix this giant boo-boo. And spoiler alert, there's still another one coming up. Okay, for our bluebird, I'm going to bring in some B.5 and some B.3. And then for his chest, his under area, I'm going to flick in some OR 7.2 from the bottom towards the top of the bird. Then for our sweet little puppy, I'm going to use O 4.0, 4.1, and 4.3. I'm going to start with that darkest color, the 4.3, bringing that around on each side of his body, underneath his neck, in between his paws, under his ear, behind his snout, and then in front of one of his ears, also a little bit on the left and right hand side of his paws. Right here is where I get that second nice big drip. And I'm not convinced yet that there's an issue. I should have waited, you guys. When this happens to you, let your markers sit for a little while. Let them acclimate. There might be a change in pressure or something like that. No, I just dabbed mine off and kept going. And yeah, it happens again. And it made me very sad. But don't worry. We fix it, guys. We fix the marker boo-boo. So coming up here along the side of his head is where the next big drip happens. By the way, the reason my markers were acting so wild was because a giant storm was coming. Oh, there it is. All right. So it's raining really bad today, but here I am. I'm doing a voiceover, and at the end of the day, it all turned out just fine. So I dabbed off what I could, and now I brought in my 4.1 to blend out the 4.3, bringing it in, working it around the edges, pulling out that 4.3, but leaving a little spot towards the center where I can add a light highlight with my 4.0. So for that highlight, I'm going to just flick back and forth very lightly with the 4.0, and anywhere else that I had left white, I would do that as well. Once that dried, I repeated the process just to build up the color. For the butterfly, I've got some R2.4 and R2.2, tiny bit of 2.4 underneath the wing there, and then bringing the 2.2 to color the remainder of those butterfly wings. Here is our finished colored image. Before I go into recovery mode, I am going to die cut this. This really helps you see where the issue spots actually are. So once this is die cut, I have my heat tool and my zero blender. I am going to turn my heat tool on and leave it on while I'm doing this. And the reason I'm doing that is because you have to move really quickly for this technique to work. You run your zero blender over and then you quickly pull your heat tool over so you can dry that blender. What the zero blender is doing is it's flooding the fibers of the paper. So it's pushing the color out, diluting it. But if you don't dry it quickly, then what will happen is that color will resurface up towards the top of the paper. If you want to get it so that you just can see white paper, that means you need to dry that blender before the color has the ability to go anywhere else other than the bottom of the paper. So you can see there we got rid of our brown spot. The yellow is going to take me a little bit more time, but with some patience, I managed to get rid of most of our boo-boo from the yellow. So no harm, no foul there. Next, I'm going to bring in a white gel pen to color the centers of those yellow florals. For our sentiment, I'm going to do some heat embossing. So I've got some anti-static powder here on some black cardstock, stamping this out in clear embossing ink, and then bringing in some bright white embossing powder. Once I get that how I like it, I'll bring my heat tool in here and quickly melt my embossing powder. Then I can die cut out my sentiment. For our background, I'm using this cute pink plaid cardstock, which is going to tie in really well with our pink butterfly. I've added some low loft foam tape to the back of a piece of white cardstock that I've cut to 3¼ inches by 4½ inches. And then I'm going to take this cardstock and I'm going to place it right in the center of that plaid background piece so that we have a 1/2 inch border going all the way around. It looks really nice when you're working with a single image. Here I've added foam tape again to the back of our beautiful colored image, and I'm going to put it right here in the center of the background. Put some black foam tape on the back of the sentiment, and I'm going to pop this up towards the bottom of our wagon. Now we need to bring the bling, so I'm adding a couple of gems from the Homestead Harvest gem stickers, and then I can add glue to the back of our completed panel and adhere it to our card base. So here is the finished super cute card, and we managed to save it despite our coloring catastrophe. Guys, I hope you picked up some tips and tricks today. Please be sure to like and subscribe, as well as hit that notification bell so that you'll know about future videos here on the Honeybee Stamps YouTube channel. Thank you so much for watching and have a wonderful day.